Creating really great retail experiences is tough, especially with multiple stores, teams of staff, fulfillment centers, separate workflows. It's a lot. But with Shopify Point of Sale, you can do it all without complexity. Shopify's point of sale system is a unified command center for your retail business. It brings together in-store and online operations, even across 1,000 locations. Imagine being able to guarantee that shopping is just always convenient. Endless aisle, ship to customer, buy online, pickup in-store, all made simpler. So customers can shop how and where they want, and staff have the tools they need to close the sale every time. And let's face it, acquiring new customers is expensive. With Shopify POS, you can keep existing shoppers coming back to your stores with consistent, tailored experiences and first-party data that give marketing teams a competitive edge. Want more? Check out shopify.com/noise, all lowercase, and learn how to create the best retail experiences without complexity. Shopify.com/noise.
To me, that's what's like modern about it, is really embracing the capacity for witchcraft to just let you fill in the blanks, let you make it customizable. We can interact with the unknown, with the mysterious, with the energy that's out there. And I think most people, especially at this point in history, understand vibes. And so we know that, like, we have energy, we can feel our own energy, we can feel other people's energy. So it's just about believing in that and believing that we have some sort of say about how to work with that energy.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 630 with guest Michelle T. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you are here. I have a guest for you, and we're talking about magic. What other great topic could we have as the season is changing into fall? I mean, maybe you're listening to this in the future and it's not, but as we're recording this, it is fall. One of my favorite things is the season's changing. And another one of my favorite things is talking about magic and watching it happen. So I have no doubt you are going to love today's guest. Before we jump in, I do have some spots open for private coaching if you would like some support. What seems to be coming up a lot lately in the women that I've been coaching is self-compassion. And I get a fair amount of people that come to our coaching sessions and they have their list of topics, things that they want to accomplish. And I'm all for big goals. How many times have I told you guys that? 17,000 probably. I'm all for big goals. However, I would be doing a disservice to you if I helped coach you through them and we come up with ways to strategize to get to those goals. And then when you do have setbacks, which you will, I guarantee you will have setbacks. When you have those setbacks, you beat yourself up. And then maybe you get to those goals. And then when we're done working together, you're right back where you started. That's what I don't want to have happen. So what I do with clients when they bring me these big goals is we take 5 giant steps back and we work on baby steps, getting there a lot, probably slower than you would like to. However, in the meantime, lots of grace, lots of working on your self-talk, lots of working on these sort of underlying coping mechanisms that point towards them being unhealthy and also point towards you beating yourself up. That's what we cannot have. When you learn the new language of having self-compassion, giving yourself grace, being kind to yourself, I guarantee you will be much quicker to get to the goals that you want. So that's just an example, a theme that's been coming up a decent amount lately in the very busy women that I coach. All right, let me tell you a little bit about today's guest. Michelle T is the author of numerous books, including the popular Modern Tarot and its follow-up, The New Modern Magic. She is a witch, a mom, and the founder of Drag Queen Story Hour. So without further ado, here is Michelle. Michelle, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime someone has a book coming out, like as an author, like I get it. So, and if it's something interesting that I think my audience will enjoy, I just am ecstatic to have you on. And they know that I have been interested in witchy stuff, and I'm in my bedroom now. I just moved, separated, and I'm in my own place. And over to my right is a portrait of a crow, and Lilith is on the wall along with a skeleton smoking a cigarette. So I also love the spooky.
Yeah.
But I want to start by just asking you kind of a broad question to introduce us to your work. So the book is called Modern Magic.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us sort of like what is modern about it, and what do you consider magic?
Well, I guess what's modern about it is that I've created my own sort of magical practice. It's kind of solo, most, not all, and no shade to the witches and the covens. Like, if anything, I'm so envious, of that type of guidance and community, but that just hasn't been my path. And I know a ton of people, and it's not their who do practice magic, and it's not their path either. Yeah. And we're just sort of figuring it out on our own, and we're incorporating tradition, and then we're creating our own traditions. We're using magical tools that have been maybe used, for hundreds and hundreds of years. And then we're using like glitter, you know what I mean? So
okay. Yeah.
To me, that's what's like modern about it, is really embracing the capacity for witchcraft to just let you fill in the blanks, let you make it customizable.
Permission to use Bath and Body Works candles if you want to. Like,
yeah, I mean, like, you can do better, but if you need to, if that's what's available to you, I get it. Use those Bath and Body Works candles. My God, the smell. Every time I walk by that place in the mall, it's like I just, yeah.
For people
and
with
I'm
sensory
not a natural
sensitivities,
person. No, I love chemical scents. I love them. It's just not that.
Not that. A lot at once. Yeah.
Yeah. To put it, I guess, the most broadly is that there's more to this reality than we know, and that we're, I think, even capable of knowing, with the tools, the physical tools that we're born with. But we can sort of interact with it. We can interact with the unknown, with the mysterious, with the energy that's out there. And I think most people, especially at this point in history, understand vibes, understand energy, right? And so we know that, like, we have energy, we can feel our own energy, we can feel other people's energy. And there's just like, we can even feel the energy of spaces, of whether it's a house or a natural landscape, we can feel the energy. So it's just about believing in that, and believing that we have some sort of say about how to work with that energy.
Okay. I love that. So it's sort of like permission to make it your own. Because I think when people think about quote unquote witchcraft, a certain kind of thing sort of pops up for them. And so it sounds like you're saying, like, you can take so many different things that they hear on this podcast and other podcasts, and sort of figure out how they want to incorporate it for positive in their life.
Yeah. It's take what you want and leave the rest. I really believe that. And I do feel like, because of these traditions that I'm speaking of are very European, they're white people traditions. Like, I don't feel any sort of preciousness about like appropriation or doing it properly, or, the way that I would if I was looking at any sort of practices that come from traditions of color. Then I would be very much more like, is this even available to me as a white person? What's the respectful way to work with it, to move towards it? But, when we're just talking about basic European witchcraft, it's like, yeah, take what you want and leave the rest. Mugwort means nothing to you, don't mess with it. You like candles, and you like the traditions of different type of energies that are ascribed to different colors, and you want to work with candles, do it.
Yeah. Okay. I also love, in the book, you talk about how witchcraft is feminist. Can you say more about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, even, and again, as a white person, my history that I'm talking about here is really European. That said, every single culture on the planet has an indigenous spirituality that is very pagan in nature, that's very folk magic-y. So it's not only Europe that has done these things. Everyone has, but that's just where my people have come from. Witchcraft is feminist. It's always been feminist, in that, going back to the medieval period, in Europe, when the witch hunts started, it was independent women, wealthy women, It was women who had access to herbs and were trained in how to treat people before there was the advent of like medicine and doctors. People went to
Wasn't
their
it a
local.
lot of sometimes like unmarried, child-free women too,
Yeah.
which were also
Yeah.
like side eyes
Very
back
threatened,
then? Hmm.
threatening rather, very threatening to the church. And just as there was the rise in, male professions and the professionalization of medicine, midwives, women who cured with herbs and things like that, and with energy as well, they just became very suspect. But it was always a very female-led sort of culture. It was sort of a thing that women did. Not that there weren't men too, because there always have been men, but it's always been majority women. And because it's not patriarchal. We're not, as far as like worshiping a deity, if you choose to do that, take your pick. There's so many amazing pagan deities, from history, from various parts of the world. You could worship a god if you want. You can worship a goddess. It's very like there's not one judgy dude up in the sky who's just sort of like making sure you're behaving. I think that in one thing I love about, pagan traditions is that like you're not necessarily trying to behave. You can hex if you want. You can certainly have a lot of sex. You can totally, be an embodied human, having an embodied human experience. And there's, nothing wrong with any of it. There's not a code of conduct to follow. And that said, certain witches, of course, there's like the rule of three, that anything that you do will come back to you threefold. So that's a pagan belief that some people subscribe to, some people don't, but it sort of keeps you on the up and up as far as doing magic for positive things. Right. Other people believe if you can't hex, you can't cure, and that being able to do punishing magic is just as important as being able to do generative manifesting magic.
You need to have that
polarity. And this is part of why it's so feminist, is that you get to decide what makes sense to you. You're not being told, okay, if you want to do this, you have to ascribe to this set of rules. Like you can really figure it out for yourself.
You don't have to be put into a box. Okay. Well, you mentioned, you very, very briefly mentioned, the quote unquote, like God in the sky. And I remember reading, you said that you talk about 12-step programs a little bit in the book, and that what you like is how in those rooms they talk about, I think it's like the God of your understanding. So can you say more about that and how it's incorporated into your teachings?
When it was time for me to get sober, and I really knew I had to, I went to 12-step meetings. And I know a lot of people really have problems with the God part, but the whole like higher power, God of your understanding, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of felt like I'd already done that work a little bit when I was younger, as far as like, what do I believe? And I do believe in something, but it's not that God. I guess the God of my understanding really varies. I feel like I like having a pantheon, I love the Greek queen of the witches, Hecate, and her name is pronounced really different ways, but right now
I've heard of that, but it's spelled really kind of different.
Yeah,
right?
it's
Okay.
K-A-T-E.
Yes.
So I've Hecate.
That's how I've heard it.
Hecate. So yeah, I really love her. There's a writer who passed away in the 80s who I really admire and love, Cookie Mueller, and I feel like I've been doing a lot of like psychic work to work with her as a spirit guide. So she's, and that's the thing too. You can pull on your ancestors. It doesn't have to be some sort of like star god, although that's really fun. It can also be, your own ancestors, your chosen ancestors, people maybe that you never knew, but their work in the world while they were alive is really meaningful to you. I love working with those kinds of ancestors. No shade to my DNA ancestors are probably out there being like,
hello,
flipping me the bird. What about us? Came all the way from Poland for this. You're in
the snow.
Yeah,
I like that a lot. And same. I grew up in the church, not super strict, but both my parents grew up very strict Catholic, and then we transitioned to Lutheran, which, from what I understand, is Catholic light.
Yeah, it's groovier than Catholic.
I know. And then it's a little more modern. And then we just don't kneel as much, basically. And then when I was a teenager, sort of like transitioned out, and because I was asking a lot of questions that I wasn't getting answers to that satisfied me and my very curious mind. And I've sort of circled back to similar to what you like. I know there's something out there. I don't think it's in human form by any stretch. I think it's genderless. It's because that's the voice that I hear. I am lucky enough to be channeled through spirit guides. And I think one of them is my maternal grandmother who died 12 years before I was born. One of the things, and this is just something I'm curious about that's not on my list of questions. Okay. So a little personal anecdote. My mom grew up very Catholic, and one of her sister knows like all the saints, and I love asking her questions because there's a saint for everything, and like buries them in the yard and like all that kind of stuff. And I also love Catholic churches. I think there's some of the most beautiful architecture and just the energy going into them.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like my mom read tarot in the 1970s. She gifted me her tarot deck with a book with her notes in it from before I was born and when I was little itty bitty. And then also my mom can cast spells, and she doesn't really like to talk about it a whole lot. And I'm like, what's going on? So is there some kind of like direct connection with the Catholic Church and witchcraft, or am I just like making that up?
You're not making it up. I mean, the Catholic Church kind of consumed a lot of pagan traditions and imagery because
there's so much ritual there.
Yeah, well, the people already had their thing going on, and they weren't really interested in giving it up and converting, but it was a sort of way to sort of bring the people along with them, you know? So like most of the big Catholic holidays or Christian holidays like Christmas, like that's a pagan holiday. Like it's not the birthday of the baby Jesus. It's just not. It's the darkest night of the year. It's the rebirth of the sun. The sun comes back. S-U-N, not S-O-N. Easter, it's like, really? Like, why all the bunnies and eggs with this guy dying on the cross? Like, it doesn't make sense. It was obviously a pagan holiday celebrating fertility and growth and, the natural world and stuff. So
interesting.
I think we see a lot of it in Catholicism for sure, because they've really kept all of the glitz and the trappings. And even a lot of Catholic churches have this big round window on the very front, and it's a rose window, and it's from my understanding, that is also, it's like a goddess thing, and it's taken from temples and various religions that were more matriarchal and goddess centered. So, and even in the Catholic Church, we have a goddess. It's the only splinter of Christianity that kept the goddess, that kept Mary. So I mean, my school that I went to was Our Lady of Assumption. So it was like a goddess school, although it was not goddessy.
Okay.
It's such a drag. I wasn't raised strict Catholic either, but I think the fact that me and my sister went to Catholic school just made it a heavier dose than.
For sure. And okay. We need to take a quick break. And when we get back, I want to ask you about luck. So we'll be right back, everybody. Hey everyone, if you're anything like me, you love a good home-cooked meal, but you don't always have time for the meal planning, the prepping, the shopping, all of that, right? Well, that's where HelloFresh comes in. With farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients delivered straight to your door, they make it so easy to whip up delicious meals without the hassle. No more endless recipe searching, and no more buying a whole jar of some random spice you'll use once. HelloFresh sends you exactly what you need, fresh and perfectly portioned. Plus, with 50 recipes to choose from each week, you'll never get bored. I personally love their fit and wholesome options, keeping my meals healthy without sacrificing flavor. And here's the best part. If your schedule changes, HelloFresh has your back. You can easily adjust your delivery date or even skip a week if life gets too crazy. Get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/free MSN. Applied across 7 boxes, new subscribers only, varies by plan. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/free MSN. Creating really great retail experiences is tough, especially with multiple stores, teams of staff, fulfillment centers, separate workflows. It's a lot. But with Shopify Point of Sale, you can do it all without complexity. Shopify's point of sale system is a unified command center for your retail business. It brings together in-store and online operations, even across 1,000 locations. Imagine being able to guarantee that shopping is just always convenient. Endless aisle, ship to customer, buy online, pickup in-store, all made simpler. So customers can shop how and where they want, and staff have the tools they need to close the sale every time. And let's face it, acquiring new customers is expensive. With Shopify POS, you can keep existing shoppers coming back to your stores with consistent, tailored experiences and first-party data that give marketing teams a competitive edge. Want more? Check out shopify.com/noise, all lowercase, and learn how to create the best retail experiences without complexity. Shopify.com/noise. noise. You know what's the worst? Getting a surprise bill that needs to be paid right away, but you don't have the cash until your next payday, which might be a whole week away. Earnin is an app that gives you access to your pay as you work, up to $100 per day or up to $750 per pay period. Just download the Earnin app and verify your paycheck. Then access up to $100 a day as you work and leave an optional tip. Any money you access plus tips are automatically repaid from your next paycheck. You can use the money you get from Earnin for a special weekend away, for your mental health, getting that holiday gift early that's on sale right now, or even a personal growth retreat. Make Earnin a part of your financial routine and join Earnin's over 3.5 million customers who say things like, when I think about Earnin, I think about financial stability, security. It gives me a lot of peace of mind. Download Earnin today, spelled EARNIN in the Google Play or Apple App Store. When you download the Earnin app, type in noise under podcast when you sign up, please. It'll really help the show. Noise under podcast. Subject to your available earnings, location, daily max, and pay period max. See earnin.com/TOS for details. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Bank products are issued by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC. Okay, we're back. I know you write about this in your book, but can you tell us, like, what is your opinion on luck, or even like how do you define it?
I mean, luck to me is just a sort of grace that is it's not earned, right? It's like a good fortune that isn't anything you worked for. It's just you're just sort of blessed with it. And I think some people maybe have a lot of it.
Yeah.
And some people have moments that are really lucky moments. I think most people have moments in their life where they're like, wow, that was wild that happened. I'm so grateful, for whatever it was. I like talking about it because I had this one moment that really stands out to me. And it was when I was not in the best space. I was still drinking. I was very much in the consequences of my alcoholism. I was driving cross country with my girlfriend who I had cheated on all summer. And I knew we should break up, but I was acting like it was so painful for me to break up with them. Like I was being such a martyr. And we were on a cross country trip. We stopped in Vegas, went to play bingo. And I remember just having this interesting, sparkly feeling. And I was like, I feel lucky. I was like, yeah. This is how I'd never felt lucky before or since, which isn't to say I haven't experienced luck, but it was this weird feeling. I was like, I think, people are like, I feel lucky. I think I feel lucky. And then I won like $1,500 in the bingo game, which was
my gosh.
Yeah. And it wasn't that it was a special pot. Like to win that pot, you had to call bingo on like one particular number. It wasn't just about getting a bingo. Your bingo had to be won with one, and I got it.
So the chances were slim.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, bingo, I love bingo because someone's going to win. It's not like playing Jack, like the house can win. Like in bingo, someone's going to win. Why not you? I love it. But this was different. This was really cool. So, and I don't know what that is. I like to attribute it to my ancestors, my grandmother, my aunts. They all were big bingo players. The minute I turned 18, they took me, to play bingo with them. So, and I am very lucky at bingo. It really drives people around me crazy.
That's interesting. I love that speaking of my mom too, my mom is like that, and she gets a feeling about something and she's never, to my understanding, never wrong. She's won stuff like that, even like drawings at a potluck, like raffles and stuff. And sometimes she's even said like, oh, I don't think it's tonight to win. I think somebody else needs it more than I do.
So interesting. I just this summer, like last month, went on a Nevada road trip with my husband, and we went and played bingo in Vegas. And I was playing and I started feeling like this weird, like my desire to win started feeling weirdly like I've got to win. Like it was almost like a responsibility. And then I thought, wait, I'm not the only one playing. My husband can win. I don't have to win. He can win. And then he won. It was very weird. Yeah, it was very weird. And it was right after I said it to him too. I said, I just realized that you can win. I don't have to win. You can win. I won.
I love that. And that could be such a metaphor for so many other things in our life.
Right? Like take the pressure off. It's not all on you.
Right. To save the day or to just give somebody else the responsibility for their life.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
You mentioned in the book that you are not someone where like somatic work comes easy to you, like getting into your body, like
Yeah.
meditations, that type of thing. And I've always envied people kind of in the wellness industry who like that's like their thing and they can just like drop in.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of my audience, we like staying up here in our head. So can you give us advice on how to start? Like what would be a good first step for someone who's interested in something like breath work?
Breath work is so interesting because if you are a person who feels sort of like, I'm a bad meditator because I get distracted by my brain and all that other stuff, which I have a lot to say about that separately.
Hmm.
We're all bad
Hmm.
meditators. That's the point of meditating. But for
Yeah.
breath work, you are actually getting a psychedelic experience if you're doing breath work as opposed to meditation. And it's shocking. And it's not the same as meditating where you're having to like count your breaths or sort of watch your floating thoughts. With breath work, it's almost like you're seeing your thoughts with a new clarity. And
Hmm.
there isn't, if your thoughts come to you, it's fine. The work is not to dismiss your thoughts. The work in breath
Yeah.
work is, it's more of a holistic transformative experience. I felt like when I have done it, and I used to have a more of a. I'm not really doing it very much right now. Although my meditation is bigger than it's ever been, but it's not breath work per se. I am sober. I haven't done hard drugs or drank alcohol for over 20 years, but I did let mushrooms in recently. And then I
Hmm.
just realized, oh, I think that what I'm looking for in mushrooms, I'm already getting from breath work and from real
Hmm.
meditation, which is such a joy
Interesting.
to realize. Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm not missing out on anything. Like this is actually great. It's a
Hmm.
psychedelic experience. That when I came out of my first breath work, I was like, oh wow, it felt like there had been a film over me that I hadn't realized was there and it was gone.
Yeah.
And everything was incredibly almost too clear. You're like, whoa. I mean, give it a try. It's,
Yeah.
do it if you can find somebody who can lead you in breath work. It's nice to start with somebody who can show you how to do it. It can be
Hmm.
a very overwhelming experience. And so I can imagine that being a little too much for some people. It could be helpful to have a guide there with you
Yeah.
grounded, that you're not out on your own. But even meditation, it's like, I think that there can be a lot of weird strictness in meditation where like, oh, people are like, I'm a bad meditator because
I just think the whole time. Yeah.
certainly some people's brains are more, our minds are more, active than others. But what meditation has taught me is that it's my mind's job to pump out thoughts the same way it's my heart's job to pump blood and oxygen stuff around my body. So if that's the case, it helps you relate to your thoughts really differently. It doesn't make them
Hmm.
stop because, I can't stop my heart either, thank goodness, but
Yeah.
you just don't take them seriously as much. And that's really wonderful because I think a lot of people, I think we do take our thoughts very seriously and we're encouraged to, but meditation will show you that like 80% of it is total garbage. And then when you get
Right.
real insight, you're like, oh, I think that's a good one. Actually, I'm going to keep that one.
I'm gonna
But
keep that one. I would say like 90% of mine most of
yeah,
the
I
time are
mean, I'm
total
being generous.
garbage. Yeah, and I love that. And I mean I would just tell people like YouTube's a great place to start with breath work, but I want to underscore what you said about how it can be enormously helpful to be there in person, to work
Mhm.
with a guide who can tell you and like they can see your body and your how you're breathing
Yeah,
and correct you because it can be a very psychedelic experience. Like I've had that happen a couple of times
yeah.
during breathwork sessions, and it's only happened when I'm doing it like in a group setting with a facilitator.
That it's gone that psychedelic for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, no,
Because
it's
they've
it's
had
really
they've
true.
corrected me and
Yeah.
guided.
And the person that I went to, she'd like play the crystals around you and do all these other little cute little tweaks that felt really
Oh.
nice. And I did, breath work once I did a breath work session by myself in my home one time when I was really in the throes of some pretty serious grief over divorce that I was going through.
Mm.
And it was
Hmm.
very dark breathwork experience. It was almost like a
Yeah.
dark psychedelic, like it was a bad trip, basically. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize that that was also a possibility, based on the state of mind that I was in. So it's good to get some guidance. Obviously, I came out of it. It's fine. It's not like dosing yourself into a bad trip with a chemical. It's different, but
Yeah.
but it's still impactful. Like I think about that a lot, and I'm like, what was that? Was that weird?
That happens sometimes. Yeah. And my audience knows that I've been on a psychedelic therapy journey and
Oh,
I started with ketamine.
cool. Oh, my husband does
Hmm.
that.
It's been enormously helpful.
Oh, I love that.
And I I'm on my second round of 6 now.
Mhm.
And in one of my first round, I wouldn't call it a bad trip, but it was definitely sad, like the things that I saw. And I was
Yeah.
talking to a friend and colleague of mine and telling him, and he's like, oh my gosh, like I've never had that happen. And he was kind of like viewing it as like, I'm sorry that happened to you. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. I walked into it and I wouldn't recommend that for someone who hasn't done a decent amount of therapy and has a decent amount of self-awareness and also resilience.
Yeah.
I always go in with the intention, like, instead of having a specific, like, show me this, like, here's my question. I do that sometimes, but mostly it's like, what does the medicine need to tell me right now? Like, I am not going to be the keeper of like, here's what it needs to be.
Yeah.
And with that one, I came out of it thinking like, okay, I needed to see the things that I saw on there in order to get to the end result, the path, the message that I heard or, heard throughout all of the 6 sessions. And when I choose that lens,
Mhm.
it feels a lot less scary.
That's really great. I love that. I mean, one thing I think that when you are on a really clear spiritual path, like you've decided to look at life spiritually, or,
Mhm.
take on different practices that offer, a spiritual lens, you realize that like, even though obviously we're all kind of trudging towards our best life, that's what we want, we
Yeah.
want the things that we want. Really, what you see is that like it's not always best for you to have only good things. Like we're supposed to
Yeah.
suffer. We're supposed to experience grief. We're supposed to have rough times. Like just like our bodies are supposed to get sick. Like we're not supposed to be on some, magical plane where it's only
Yeah.
joy and light. And I read tarot cards professionally, and so I see that a lot where I'll be pulling cards for somebody and I'll be like, oof, this looks like a rough path, but I think actually you're supposed to do it. Like,
Yeah.
I think that most
I've
of us
gotten those
work.
readings before.
Right? Yeah. It's like I
Mhm.
don't like giving them because I'm like, oh, I think you should run away from this situation. But the tarot's
Yeah.
go do it.
Yeah.
Lord knows I've got a lot of situations in my life that any person would have been like, don't do that. But if I did
Yeah.
do it and experience the fallout from it, I certainly wouldn't be who I am right now. Right. So it's
Yes. I say the
mystery.
same
The
thing.
closer
It
we
is
get into it, the more we see what a mystery it is.
the more of a mystery it is. Yes. So again, everybody, the book is Stories, Rituals, and Spells for Contemporary Witches. Modern Magic is the actual title of it. So I love, and I forget what I think the name of the chapter is actually called What Are We Even Doing? And I love that. And you talk about how, we do all the manifestation and the maybe someone's doing affirmations and the journaling and like kind of nothing is happening. Like what or nothing quote unquote good is happening in their eyes. I've certainly been in that place. What advice do you have for those people? What do you say to that?
Right. I think the first thing to do in a situation like that is to start a practice of having a gratitude list, a daily gratitude practice.
Yeah.
I do it with like 3 of my friends. We have a thread and we read each other's gratitude lists, and it's really fun, and
Mhm.
helpful. Sometimes we like our problem is actually psychological, right? It's not necessarily a magical problem. Like maybe we're having a really hard time being able to receive the good things in our life, the joy in our life. Certainly cast spells and don't get everything I want by any means, but
Mhm.
I enjoy the process of like standing before my altar, thinking about what I want, having gratitude, playing with the materials that I'm using, whether it's herbs or glitter, candles or seashells. That is the practice, right? It's also
Mhm.
a little bit of a devotional practice. It's like, here I am embodied in my, possibly one human life, maybe more, but, certainly never this one again. So
Yeah.
it's about giving a lot of thanks to that. So you might have to shift it a little bit. Like if you're like, feeling sort of like, I'm not getting what I want. It might be about, okay, well, what are you giving to your practice? Maybe stop trying to get things from your practice and start giving things to your practice and see if you can't change the energy a little bit.
I love that. Okay, I love that. When you take a quick break and we get back, I want to ask you about dreams. So we'll be right back,
Mhm.
everybody.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms Podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Okay, how do you look at dreams and their connection to your work?
Right. It's I love doing dream work. I just came back from a week-long workshop that I did in New England, and it was called Writing for Witches. And it should have been
Why didn't
called,
I go?
oh my God, I'll do it again. It should really have been called Witching for Writers, because we did a lot more witchy work than we did writing, which is funny. You know, the main homework for everybody was to keep a dream journal.
I used to do that. I don't anymore.
I'm like off and on with it. I'm on right now. I did wake up this morning and write down my dream. I got to go back and look at it because I forgot it, but I did do it. I feel like, you know, our subconscious holds a lot of information.
Sure does.
I actually kind of feel like it might actually hold the secret to reality, whatever that means. And I say that because I've had prophetic dreams before. I've had really wild dreaming experiences that have actually come true. My dreams happened, which really just make me think, like, what do I know? Like, how do I knew the future, right? And and it was a very unexpected future that I dreamt of, you know. It wasn't like, oh, I dreamt that my friend came over and then my friend came over. Wow. It was like, oh, this trip I was going on took a turn that I never knew it would take. It kind of fell apart. I had to go someplace else entirely. And I had dreamt of that transition in the plans. So yeah, I feel like the more you can do to connect with your subconscious, the better your spiritual practice. That's how I feel. So meditation is something that really does that. And sleeping and dreaming is something that we all do every night. You can do dream spells where if you want information, you sort of set that intention before bed. You can maybe even make a little altar right by your bed. You know, there's been times that I've wanted to understand the nature of a certain deity or energy more, and I've asked them to come to me in a dream, and they have, you know, and it's been really amazing. And, you know, is it just my brain giving me what I want? I don't care. You know what I mean?
I know, right? Don't ruin this for me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm having fun. You know, I feel I'm getting insight into things that feel meaningful to me, and I'm having like more meaning in my life as a result. So yeah, it's really, you can do all kinds of things with dreams. It's really underutilized when you think it is something that we do.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to start doing that again, even if it's just like in my notes app on my phone, just to like, or voice note. You could even do that.
Oh, voice note's probably the best, actually. That's probably, yeah, because it's like reading my half asleep chicken scratch is going to be.
Right. I had a dream, this one very vivid one that I remember when I was, so I met, I've been married twice. My first husband, I met him when I was 17. We were together for 13 years until I was 31. And so when I don't remember, it was definitely within like the first 6 months or so of when we were together. I was just a child, and I had a dream that there was like a ravine, and there was a chain link fence that was falling down off the ravine. And I was on the bad side of the fence, holding on with my fingers, about to fall off of this cliff and holding on to this chain link fence. And my then boyfriend was standing on the other, like on the safe side of the fence with his friends, just watching me. And I was falling, and he wasn't there to save me when he could have saved me. And he was looking at me and also talking to his friends. And then what ended up ending us, like, and was like a problem in our relationship for 13 years, is I was never a priority. I think about that dream still to this day and how haunting it felt to wake up even back then and think to myself, that was weird. Like, and it was visceral. The fear and terror I had of this man is not going to show up for me.
Oh.
That's what it was. And then, I mean, it took a long time, almost a decade and a half, but for some reason that dream has stood out to me decades later of that it came true. I mean, not literally, I didn't fall off a ravine and have to hold onto a fence and let go, but kind of.
It's so wild. It's like our psyche knows all, right? It's like
Hmm.
we're just connected to the giant everything is how I feel. We're
Yeah.
connected to we know everything. And
Yeah.
to an extent we're not supposed to know,
Hmm.
access that information. I mean, one thing that was really wild about the prophetic dream that I had was as I was seeing what I was seeing, I was overcome with a sensation that I was not supposed to seeing it, that it was actually something that was forbidden for me to see. It was like taboo. It was forbidden. It was like, no, I'm
I
not
see.
supposed to see this. But there was nothing. I was just literally seeing this guy like talking. It turned out to be like the Greyhound bus guy who was letting me off the
Hmm.
Greyhound bus when I had to drop off this road trip. But so there was nothing alarming about it that made it seem scary, like I shouldn't see. But I
Hmm.
knew very deeply I wasn't supposed to. So I think we do block ourselves on some level. We're supposed to just be dealing with one moment at a time, one
Yeah.
body at a time. But really, I do think we have access to eternity and infinity. But we'll get there
Interesting. I
eventually.
do too.
Yeah.
I do too. Well, with the time we have left, the few minutes, I wanted to ask you about your journey to getting sober because I have a decent amount of people who are either sober themselves or sober curious or just, interested in kind of what brings someone to decide that they need to cut alcohol out of their life. So what was that like for you?
Sure.
It was 20 years ago. It's been 20 years.
Yeah, yeah. 2003, so like 20,
Okay.
21 years. I just it stopped being fun and I
Yes.
couldn't stop in spite of it not being fun anymore. I kept
Mhm.
thinking, oh, you should take a break. And I couldn't. And it was really maddening. It was really, really maddening. And I was in a relationship at the time and we would fight every night. And in the morning, I had been drunk. So I just had to apologize whether or not I was, there was just this sense that I was like, oh, sometimes I'm like, did I get sober so I could win a fight with my ex-boyfriend? Maybe whatever it takes. But yeah, I just knew in my gut that I was on a bad path and I couldn't stop. But I didn't want to, I'd really identified with being a drinker. I thought it was like feminist or tough. And,
Hmm.
I'm a
Hmm.
writer. I just really identified with people who were lived edgy lives and were fearless. And, alcohol made me more fearless, certainly. And it seemed like a fearless thing, maybe even to do to drink as much as I did. But I remember just having this period of real embarrassment once I got sober when I was like, wow, I thought like my personality was that I drank a lot. Like that's
Hmm.
so sad. But there was so much tied up in it, right? There was
Yeah.
so many other things tied up in it. So yeah, I'm really lucky. My writing mentor is sober. They've been sober the whole time that I've known them. And they came to town one day, and they had known I had been trying to stop because I'm such a blabbermouth. I would like not drink for
Me
like two
too.
days and be like, I'm not drinking, and then like drink
Hmm.
a day. And so like that was kind of what. So they were like, "Are you still drinking? And, how's not drinking going?" And we were at a cafe in San Francisco, and I just burst into tears, and I was like, I can't stop.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that they were there, that they asked me, they took me to a meeting, and that was my last drink. I didn't drink again. And I'm grateful that 12 step worked for me.
Mhm.
I love hearing everyone's stories. I love telling my story. You get dopamine off of talking about yourself. And, I think
Sure.
I was very dopamine depleted coming in,
Hmm.
giving up alcohol. Yeah, it felt like a very spiritual experience that I had in those rooms. I'll just be forever grateful for it.
Me too. I just actually found my 10-year chip. My friend Courtney she ordered it because it has like rainbow
Oh, I
rhinestones
love
on
those
it. It's
blinged
so
out chips.
cute. I know it
Yes,
was so blinged out, and I still
yes.
have it in the little plastic case. And I agree. I just want to underscore what you said. Like the very first thing you said was that it just wasn't fun anymore, but you still couldn't stop.
Yeah.
It's like I did a mini podcast episode, like 10 reasons like you might have a problem with alcohol, just to
Oh,
look at
that's such
it.
what
And
a great
like
service.
I don't say it exactly like that, but like in a roundabout sort of way. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I wanted an answer for myself that did not look at quantity because
Yeah. It's a
I was up to like a bottle of wine a night, which for some people that's, not a big deal.
Yeah, it's really about the effect more than
How
quantity.
is it impacting your life?
Yeah, how's it impacting your body, your relationships, your opportunities, your sense of yourself, so many things.
Your sense of self-worth, your level of shame.
Oh gosh. And that was another thing I realized, like, because I think that when you do maybe suspect that you have a problem, or at least that you're going kind of hard, you have those like, well, I don't do that. And I don't
Yep.
do
Oh,
that.
I had a list.
Yeah, but then you do them.
Right.
Like
Eventually you'll get there.
Yeah, eventually you'll get there. So I would do one and I'd be like, oh, it's actually not that bad. I can turn anything into a story or a joke, right? And like, just like kind of make fun of it or adapt to it. And then I just realized that, oh, under every bottom is another bottom. Like I can actually keep going like this infinitely is what I realized.
Oh, yeah.
It really chilled me. It really,
Until you're dead.
So you're dead. Totally.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I appreciate it. And I always want to just like at least save a few minutes to ask about that because I just always feel like there might be somebody listening who needs to hear it from your mouth and not mine. I mean, I still get DMs or emails from people who are like, thank you for saying that. I decided to look at it or, I decided to get sober or whatever.
Yeah.
Or have a conversation with somebody. So thank you for that. So where can people go to find more about your book? Do you have a special page or anything like that?
You can Google Michelle T. Modern Magic. You'll probably be taken to the publisher's page at Harper One page about it. And then also michellet.com, I think is my, I have my own website. You can find me on Instagram at Michelle T's, T-E-A-Z.
I follow you there. T-E-A-Z. Yeah. And 2 L's in Michelle, right?
Yes, 2 L's in Michelle. And I'm going to be starting back up in honor of my new book, Tarot Tuesdays, where I'm going to be doing public tarot readings on Instagram Live every Tuesday. And,
awesome.
If you DM me a problem, I would be happy to pull tarot cards for you. So.
Ooh, we love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Michelle T-E-A-Z on Instagram, and the book is Modern Magic, Stories, Rituals, and Spells for Contemporary Witches. We'll put that link to Harper One in the show notes, as well as your Instagram link and your website too. So we'll have that right. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time.
This was really fun.
Yeah. And everyone, thanks for listening. You know how grateful I am for your time because it is a non-renewable resource. I am so happy that you choose to spend it with me and my guests. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey, did you know there's free secret podcast episodes waiting for you that are not part of my regular podcast feed? Yes. AndreaOwen.com/free. And you just sign up. You get a link sent to you. It's very secret. It's like a secret club. We don't have a secret handshake. Don't worry about that. But it's these motivating podcast episodes that I made for you. They're under 20 minutes each. There's 3 of them. They're for wherever you are in your life. So head on over there and grab them. They range from really supporting you and seeing you where you are and being compassionate, all the way to giving you a giant kick in your ass and telling you how amazing and gorgeous and phenomenal you are. So AndreaOwen.com/free and get your hands on that free podcast feed.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.